But first, Frank, some big news from, call it outside the NHL world, but pretty impactful on the hockey world as a whole. As yesterday, the big vote came down in the NCAA, and the result was kind of exactly what we were expecting it to be. Starting on August 1st, 2025, CHL players will become eligible to join NCAA Division I schools for the 2025-26 season. Players will be able to play for one of three CHL member leagues, that's WHL, OHL, QMJHL, and not lose their NCAA eligibility. If you're kind of listening to that and going, what's different? In the past, as soon as a player had played for a CHL program, they were no longer eligible to play for an NCAA Division I school. That is changing, and that is massive, right?
It is certainly a big change for players because now their doors are open to so many different development paths. If you feel like at 16, major junior is the best play for you, and then you want to go to the NCAA, well, then that door isn't closed to you now. So you've got options, and I think it's going to significantly change the landscape, the development landscape. It's going to change how players think about it. It's going to change how teams potentially even think about drafting. What is the plan here for this player? When does the clock start ticking? There's so many things that we still don't know and don't have answers to just yet. But I think the biggest takeaway is massive win for players who have many more options to choose from now in terms of their development path.
Yeah, and where this gets kind of interesting is the way it, like you said, opens up different pipelines for guys. Before, if you wanted to be or keep your college eligibility open, you wouldn't go play in the OHL or the WHL. You would go play in, call it tier 2 junior leagues like the BCHL, the AJHL, the MJHL, whatever line you want to go down, whatever.
Or you could play tier 1 USHL if you're an American.
Yeah, USHL if you're American. So that was kind of the only way, to keep your NCAA eligibility. And now what we might see is more of these players saying, hey, I'm going to go play in the OHL because I know when I turn 18 and I'm done high school, I can still go take my scholarship at Michigan, go take my scholarship wherever. So this is going to, help the OHL and the CHL as a whole maybe get some higher end pieces. Where maybe it does hurt a league or a part of the hockey world, it's probably those tier 2 leagues potentially, right, Frank?
Maybe not. I mean, I think looking at a league like the USHL, their protocol has never changed, right? Like it's all still the same. It's still clearly amateur sports. And so I'm looking at it saying, well, if you really wanted to, I guess if you're, maybe you might have a Macklin Celebrini who, instead of going to play for the Chicago Steel, ends up playing somewhere in the WHL or somewhere, potentially closer to home. Yeah, I could understand that decision changing. But if you are an American-born player who is looking to make it to the NCAA and then the NHL, I think you're looking at going, well, I've got great programs right here in my own backyard that I don't need to cross the border and go play. I don't know that it's going to necessarily damage them. And so I'm looking at it saying there's so many unknowns here that I think we're really just starting to figure out. And I think some important points for some NHL fans. One, your NCAA players can now participate in training camp, which is something that didn't really exist before. You can't sign a contract. So that's one thing that will change. NHL teams that draft players from the CHL, if they have any intention of going the college route at all, you're not going to see entry-level contracts signed early. You're certainly not going to see NHL players with junior pay if they have NCAA aspirations in their contract. There's a whole myriad of layers to this that we're really just starting to peel back today.
And another thing that's interesting is think of a guy like Jet Lachenko, right? If it's like, okay, I'm going to sign my ELC because I made the Flyers out of camp, and then 9 games in, it's like, whoop, hold up, maybe we don't want to keep you here. Then you're going back to the OHL, but you can't go to the NCAA. And if the OHL doesn't have as much 19, 20, 21-year-old talent or whatever, then all of a sudden that might change a team's calculations for if they even want you to go down. Like there's so many different ways to look at this and different sort of permutations, if you will, in situations.
Yeah. And not to spend too much time on this one topic, I'll leave you with this final point. And it's one thing that I was thinking about last night because I was asked about the Four Nations Faceoff and Team Canada's goaltending conundrum that the whole country is experiencing. why is Canada struggling to develop goalies? I'm wondering if this NCAA rule change will be a breakthrough on that development curve. And here's why. It's not a coincidence to me that Thatcher Demko, Connor Hellebuck, Jake Ottinger, Jeremy Swayman, all the guys that are candidates to play for Team USA in net, and everyone would argue are head and shoulders above anything that Canada has to offer. It's not lost on me that they all played college hockey. So think about it from this perspective now. The reason why I think the development curve may be broken for Canadian goalies is, let's say you want to play major junior. Well, they don't really hand the net to a 16 or 17-year-old pretty often. Then you finally get it, and then you age out. So you age out into what? The ECHL? You age out somewhere that's not a great path to develop. If you could now start in major junior, make your way to NCAA, play 3 or 4 years, all of a sudden your runway is different to develop now. And it's a totally different conversation that you're having with an NHL team in terms of then being ready to turn pro and step into the NHL. That might save Canadian goalies. Just one little permutation right there, not to spend 8 minutes talking about it, but that's a really interesting change.
And I mean, I figured we were going to go long because it's a substantial piece of news, but that is interesting. Yeah, the idea of goalie development. You're no longer going to be, in quotes, forced to go to the ECHL when you're 21. It could be like, no, I'm going to go play at whatever school it is. Also, this could lead to more NCAA Division I schools popping up and a bigger college hockey picture, which does kind of excite me as well.
Yeah, I mean, the possibilities are endless.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Seravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.